In the mythology of DC Comics, Darkseid, the Lord of Apocalypse, wields a weapon that dwarfs the scale of any invading army. This animation illustrates the anti-life equation, a literal mathematical proof that life is meaningless. By solving it, Darkseid erases the free will of every sentient being in the universe, replacing hope and independent thought with perfectly managed robotic obedience. Defending the universe against a force that turns existence into a prison takes a devastating psychological toll. In the 1988 Cosmic Odyssey storyline, Green Lantern John Stewart's failure to stop an anti-life essence leads to the destruction of an entire solar system. The millions of deaths weigh so heavily on him that his internal struggle turns towards suicidal trauma. Other heroes, like Batwoman, are hunted by eschatological cults worshipping this void. These groups use grief and childhood trauma as leverage, pushing their targets toward a state of grief possession and prophetic madness in the name of the anti-life. This struggle establishes a terrifying premise. Fighting a force of absolute negation breaks the mind before it breaks the body. This fear that our lives could be reduced to a perfectly managed extension of an external formula surfaced in our own history just as these comic book icons were reaching their creative peak. In 1970, sociologist Lewis Mumford diagnosed a similar drift towards systemic erasure in his essay The Cult of Anti-Life. Mumford wrote this during a decade of intense social and political upheaval. He warned that modern civilization was becoming obsessed with technological acceleration, placing the needs of power-driven machinery above the needs of the human soul. He argued that a society prioritizing automated control over human autonomy breeds a deep subconscious desire for destruction. When we lose our capacity to exercise personal choice, we stop acting as living creators and start behaving like cogs in a machine. The struggle for free will isn't confined to a fictional planet. It is the daily effort to reclaim our humanity from our own engineered systems. Mumford called this life-erasing system the megamachine, a highly centralized, militarized, and automated social structure that strips individuals of their subjectivity and agency. As this flowchart shows, the megamachine is a technocratic system that demands endless capital accumulation. It requires total control over organic life to ensure that the process of extraction and production never slows down. Historically, this industrial scale stripped individuals of their subjectivity. As industry grew, the person was reduced to a managed component, a functionary whose only value was their contribution to the production engine. This logic views the natural world merely as a limitless inventory of raw materials. It treats forests, oceans, and atmospheres as resources waiting to be processed rather than living systems to be respected. Demanding infinite economic growth on a finite planet creates a collision course. Mathematically, a system that ignores natural limits guarantees its own eventual collapse. Living as a component in a machine creates psychic emptiness. Alienated from nature, our culture shows symptoms of profound internal decay. In the 19th century, Fyodor Dostoevsky predicted that hyper-rationality and mechanized progress would eventually lead to a hatred of life itself. He saw nihilism as the inevitable result of a world that replaces spirit with cold industrial logic. Today, this manifests in philosophies like efilism, which argue that all sentient existence is a biological trap. They view the 4 billion-year cycle of evolution as a holocaust of consumption, concluding that the most ethical act is the extinction of all feeling beings. This impulse moves from theory to violence when cults like Aum Shinrikyo turn to apocalyptic terrorism under leader Shoko Asahara. They used advanced chemical science to serve a dogma of total negation, attempting to trigger a predicted end time to purify a world they loathed. When a civilization devalues the organic world, absolute negation stops being a fringe idea and becomes a terminal societal disease. Defeating the anti-life impulse requires us to restore the integral personality, the human being who chooses to live within natural boundaries. This chart contrasts the megamachine's exponential growth against Mumford's life economy. Instead of endless expansion, it prioritizes ecological stabilization. This model requires stabilizing population, economizing production, and treating resources as a finite trust, moving us from consumers to stewards. This transition demands we replace the hubris of conquering nature with the humility of retreating into sustainable limits. True salvation lies in recognizing that meaning isn't something we manufacture through technological power. It is something we preserve by protecting life's ability to flourish. In fiction, Darkseid is defeated when his victims remember they have a purpose beyond his equation. Our own survival requires a similar realization. We have to overcome the destructive habits of the megamachine by consciously choosing to value what is organic and fragile. Unchecked consumption eventually exhausts the very resources that make choice possible. By accepting natural limits, we stop exhausting our future and begin building a space where human choice can actually endure. Protecting that world requires us to trade the cold certainty of mechanized systems for the unpredictable, messy beauty of organic growth. Protecting our world means defeating our own anti-life impulse, choosing to cultivate a sustainable, fragile harmony rather than a perfectly managed void.